Hey, hey!
Let's start. So I want to first thank MyHeritage for this wonderful hosting and the hamburgers and all the stuff and their sponsorship for this video and stuff like that that you could enjoy later. So give a round of applause for MyHeritage. Great job, awesome offices. It's my first time here and they always told me we have awesome offices and now I get it. And our silver sponsor, Big Panda, and our bronze sponsor, Pier 5, which, if you don't know, Big Panda does great stuff with monitoring all your logs and stuff like that. And Pier 5 does peer-to-peer video. So if you are interested in one of those three, we have a link. If you're looking for jobs and stuff like that, we can hook you up with the relevant person in these companies and not just like everybody else. So if you want, you can fill it up and we'll hook you up. Other thanks go to our speakers today, which are Benjamin Gruenbaum, Mark Mendel, and Uri Shaked. Okay, give them a round of applause. And Uri Shaked has a star. We have a content team in JavaScript Israel, and every month is another content team, content manager for this event. So this time it was Uri Shaked. He arranged all the lectures and stuff like that, so props to him. Okay, what's our purpose? Really quickly in JavaScript, for those of you who are in the first time here, our purpose are bringing people together, okay? Not just viewing stuff from afar, from YouTube. Be kind. We want to be the group that you can come to our meetups and ask questions without being afraid or stuff like that, like beginners friendly, we call it, and to share JavaScript knowledge in a fun way. And this is very important. We need lectures. We are beginning to run out of lectures. So even if it's your first time, make sure you apply and tell us what you want to talk about and contribute back to the community. You have all the links in the website.
טוב, שלום לכולם. אני תמיד שואל בהתחלה מי מכיר את MyHeritage, אז אני אשמח לדעת מי מכיר את MyHeritage. מעולה. מי יודע מה MyHeritage עושה? מי חושב ש-MyHeritage מתעסקת בעבודות שורשים? אוקיי, אז מצבנו טוב. טוב, אז באמת אני רוצה לספר לכם על MyHeritage. MyHeritage באמת לא מתעסקת בעבודות שורשים. MyHeritage בעצם זה המקום, אחד המקומות המובילים, שאנשים יכולים לבוא ולפתח את העץ המשפחתי שלהם, לגלות, לשתף עם המשפחה שלהם ולגלות עוד הרבה מאוד דברים על השושלת שלהם, דברים שבאמת הרבה אנשים לא מכירים. אז רציתי להראות לכם קצת היבטים אחרים, באמת ככה שאנשים לא בטוח מכירים לגבי MyHeritage. אז קודם כל קצת מספרים. MyHeritage יש לנו 6.6 מיליארד רשומות היסטוריות. זה תעודות לידה, תעודות פטירה, מרשמי אוכלוסין, עיתונים, כמויות עצומות של נתונים שפשוט אנשים יכולים לבוא ולחפש פרטים על המשפחה שלהם. יש לנו 2.5 מיליארד פרופילים בעצים, זה המון. 82 מיליון יוזרים, יש לנו 500,000 מבקרים באתר כל יום, וכל יום הם מוסיפים 2.5 מיליון פרופילים לעצים שלהם. אבל אמרתי, אני אספר קצת MyHeritage, באמת זה לא רק עצים, אנחנו עושים הרבה מאוד דברים. אני לא יודע, יכול להיות שמישהו מכם שמע על סרט שנקרא Ida's Secret, בעצם מספר על שני אחים שגילו את עצמם בזכות MyHeritage. יש לנו מלא סיפורים כאלה. הסיפור האחרון שהיה בצינור לילה, אולי מישהו ראה אותו פה, זה בעצם סיפור על עובדת שלנו שגילתה אחות שהיא לא ידעה על קיומה, ממש שבוע אחרי שהיא התחילה לעבוד פה. אז הרבה מאוד סיפורים מאוד מאוד יפים שקורים ממש בזכות החברה ובזכות מה שאנחנו עושים פה יום יום. ודבר נוסף ככה שלא תמיד מבינים או מכירים שזה מה ש-MyHeritage עושה, אנחנו בעצם עושים מסעות לשבטים אבודים. היינו בנמיביה, היינו בפפואה ניו גיני, ואנחנו הולכים להגיע גם לסיביר בשנה הבאה, פשוט כדי לתעד שבטים אבודים, שבטים שאף אחד לא היה מתעד והתרבות שלהם גם עוד מעט נעלמת. הרבה מאוד דברים שונים. אני רוצה להראות לכם עכשיו איזשהו סרטון מקטעים שאנחנו מצלמים, היינו בניו יורק, באוסלו, בירושלים, בלונדון, שבו אנחנו מעמידים פשוט טאבלט, אנשים מגיעים ומתחילים, פשוט מכניסים כמה פרטים, שזה מה שכל אחד יכול לעשות באתר שלנו, מכניסים כמה פרטים ומגלים פרטים על המשפחה שלהם. אז בואו ניקח לדוגמה מרשם אוכלוסין. מרשם אוכלוסין, למשל בארצות הברית, כל 70 שנה הוא נפתח, ואני לא יכול לדעת מה המרשם אוכלוסין שלפני 10 שנים, אבל לפני 70 שנה, 100, 200 שנה, 300 שנה, עד כמה שיש, יש לנו את המידע הזה. אנחנו בעצם עושים דיגיטציה של כמויות עצומות של מידע, מכניסים את הכל למנוע חיפוש שלנו, ובעצם הטכנולוגיה שלנו העיקרית זה המאצ'ינג. זאת אומרת, אנשים יכולים למצוא, אנחנו מוצאים עבור האנשים יותר נכון, פרטים על המשפחה שלהם, הם מזינים רק את השם, תאריך לידה, או עוד כמה פרטים, נניח, לא יודע מה, על קרובים, ואנחנו מוצאים להם את הפרטים הנוספים, או את האנשים הנוספים בעצם. ויש לנו גם מקרים שבהם בלחיצת כפתור אתה יכול להוסיף 50 אנשים לעץ שלך. וככה להגדיל, אנחנו לא מדברים על עצים של 50 או 100 או 200 איש, עצים של אלפי אנשים. הרבה מאוד פרטים שמן הסתם רוב האנשים לא יגיעו אליהם אם לא הטכנולוגיות האלה. אז אני עכשיו אראה לכם את הסרטון.
I'm looking for my grandparents.
Now we'll see what happens.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. Oh my god, this is all.
Here he is right here.
These are my great-grandparents right here. So I'm a second cousin of Nicole Gianni, so that's really cool. Ah, my grandmother and 10,000 relatives I didn't know existed.
I never met my father. It's just it's all right here. I've never gotten really this far.
באמת ממליץ לכם ללכת לעשות את זה, זה משהו שבאמת, זה סרטון של אנשים אמיתיים שעמדו בניו יורק וגילו פרטים על המשפחה שלהם, פשוט כי הם הכניסו כמה פרטים שהם ידעו, וגילו עוד הרבה מאוד דברים אחרים. אז בואו נספר לכם קצת איך אנחנו עושים את זה, ובעצם קצת על הטכנולוגיות. אז בקליינט סייד, אז אנחנו משתמשים באנגולר, בגרסה האחרונה שלו, אוטוטו אנגולר 2, נראה לאן נלך. GraphQL, אנחנו משתמשים כמובן ב-RESTful APIs, בטכנולוגיות הכי עדכניות שאפשר, כדי באמת לשרת, אנחנו צריכים, פרפורמנס זה דבר מאוד מאוד חשוב אצלנו, אנחנו משרתים 500,000 מבקרים באתר כל יום, לדברים שמאוד מאוד חשובים. ECMAScript 6, עושים יוניט טסטים עם coverage מאוד מאוד יפה, קרוב ל-80%. Node.js, Gulp, NPM, כל מה שאתם, אני מניח שאתם מכירים. בסרבר סייד, PHP 7, עם גם Microservices בג'אווה, קסנדרה וכולי, אדופ. סטאק באמת מאוד מאוד מעניין. עובדים ב-Agile, Scrum, Continuous Integration, Continuous Deployment. אנחנו, כל commit שלנו מגיע לפרודקשן. אנחנו בעצם מביאים בעצם פיצ'רים חדשים לפרודקשן, 30-40 פעם ביום מעבירים את הקוד שלנו מהמחשב של המפתח לפרודקשן, עובר אוטומציות, את כל מה שצריך עם ג'נקינס, מי שמכיר. עושים פה האקתונים כל רבעון, אפשר לראות פה כמה תמונות מההאקתון, גם האחרון שעשינו פה, גיל דייז שבהם אנשים שומעים, מגלים טכנולוגיות חדשות, מספרים על טכנולוגיות חדשות, quality sprints שבהם אנחנו דואגים לתשתיות שלנו, לדברים האלה שלפרודקט לא תמיד יש את הזמן להשקיע בזה, אז יש לנו בדיוק את המקום לעשות את זה. זהו, אז אם זה מעניין אתכם, אנחנו מגייסים גם אנשי קליינט, גם אנשי סרבר, אז דברו איתנו.
Okay, so I'm going to do this talk in English in order to honor our esteemed guest from Australia, who is now in the Bay Area. This is why Async Iterators matter. I'm Benjamin. The first thing I want to say is that this is a very opinionated talk. Feel free to disagree with everything I say. I'm just one guy. This is my personal opinion. Don't take anything I say here as like the truth or something ridiculous like that. Async Await is a language proposal that's stage 3, which means it's really close to being accepted to the specification. It's actually 2 new keywords in the ECMAScript specification. It uses promises, and it's supported in a lot of other languages like F#, Dart, C#, Python, and there is a proposal for C++. Basically, what it lets you do, there is like the old problem of how do I wait between function calls, how do I get values asynchronously, and do all that sort of stuff. Basically, what async await lets me do, it lets me put a small keyword called await before a function that returns a promise, and the function will wait for it. This means that I have a function that is resumable. I can start executing it, stop in the middle for a delay, an AJAX request, and then return to it after the request is done. And it lets me do really cool stuff, running the loop 10 times and then logging something. And an async function in JavaScript returns a promise, which means I can use then and promise.all and all the other useful promise stuff you know. Basically, if I want to make 2 requests, instead of like nesting callbacks or doing .then or doing all sorts of stuff that I have to actually remember or understand and all sorts of complex things, I can just do await fetch. Fetch is like an actual DOM API, which you can use today, but this can be like a $.get if you're used to jQuery. This will give me the result after the call is complete. If the call did not complete successfully, for example, the promise the call represents rejected, like something went wrong, this will throw an error into the function, which I can handle with try catch. I can make a request, wait for it, make another request, wait for it, and then like do a bunch of stuff. And this is like my main. It lets me wait for the result, and everything runs, and I no longer have to deal with callbacks, which I'm sure all of you love, but I don't. This is basically very nice. It's the way the language is headed. It's the way a lot of languages are headed. I don't want to go into like the very small details because you have a whole other talk in front of us. But this is really cool. If you have not used async await yet, look into it. It will save you a lot of time, and it's really, really nice. Now, async iterators is something really interesting because it's a pretty advanced proposal in the language specification. It's something that's probably coming to JavaScript, but no one is talking about it yet. So it's a stage 2 proposal, which means it's already seen the committee a few times and has progressed. It's for introducing a new syntax into the language and a new asynchronous primitive. And no one talks about it, which is like interesting. There's been like some drama recently, but generally there are no like talks about async iterators on the internet. Observables are a much smaller scope proposal. They also like introduce a very interesting async primitive to the language. They don't introduce any syntax, but everyone talks about them. There are talks about observables in Angular and observables in React and like the observer proposal and a bunch of other stuff, and it's cool. I mean, I gave a talk about observables too, but it's kind of curious that async iterators are like much further ahead and no one talks about them yet. So the last part is not really true. Like a few weeks ago, observables are not going to be championed by Kevin, and neither are async iterators. Kevin has stepped down from the technical committee, and the async iterator proposal is going to be championed by Dominic. So what are async generators? There's this slide that people who use RX love using, that there's like 4 parts where there's like a value, and then like a promise is like a value over time, and then there's like a lot of values that's like an iterable, like an iterator, and then or like an array. An array is not really accurate, but it's a good analogy. And then there's observable, which is like an array, like an iteration over time. But like the real chart is really complicated. I'll show you the chart, and people like say things like observables deprecate promises, and like async await deprecates promises, which makes no sense because we just said async await uses promises. Observables are the solution to async. If someone is telling you A is the solution to B, usually they're lying. Just a friendly tip. And observables are how everyone will be writing the code. So first of all, observables are really cool. I love them. But they only do they do certain things. But those of you who will use Angular 2 will enjoy observables in many scenarios. There are areas where there are much simpler solutions. So since a lot of you don't know what observables are, I'll just skip the observable part. But this is basically the chart. There's a ton of things that can be like singular and synchronous. There's a ton of things that can be singular and asynchronous. Promises are not the only solution to async. There is a bunch of stuff called like tasks and continuations, and a lot of other async primitives we'll not go into. And like there's a bunch of stuff that does async. So today we'll explore a single async primitive called an async iterator. Basically, what an async iterator is a declarative pull stream. It's like if you use the event emitters, something that emits events, like .on, .emit. So basically, it's something in JavaScript you register to, and then it fires a callback when you tell it to. So if you used callbacks and then promises, like async iterators do that sort of transition for like collections. They are very elegant. They're iterators. They do like pull streams, and they let you do very complicated things, which we'll see very nicely. Basically, in ECMAScript 2015, we got something called the iteration protocol. It basically means how we go through values. Before that, we had to like assume something had a dot length property, and then we did like index 0, index 1, index 2, up until length, or we just use arrays. So ES 2015 came to solve this issue by introducing an official iteration protocol. I have something, like for example a generator or something else, which I call .next on, and it brings me a value. Like let's say I have an iterator for the numbers 1 to 10. I call .next, it gives me the number 1, and it tells me it's not done. I call .next, it gives me the number 2, and it tells me it's not done, all the way to 10. I call it next, it gives me 10, it tells me it's not done, and then I call next, it gives me undefined. The question was, what does like next return on an iterator in JavaScript? So it returns an object containing the value and whether or not it's done. And like iterators are consumed by something called for off loops in JavaScript. We do a for value of iterator, and it will iterate through the iterator and show us all the values. It's a very nice protocol. It is used extensively inside a spec. For example, if you use like query selector all or some DOM stuff or other DOM stuff, you can iterate it with for off because it has like an iterator. There's a bunch of like symbols that's like symbol.iterator and a bunch of stuff I won't go into. But it's not very complicated. You just call next and it brings you the value. An async iterator is basically the same thing. You call next and it brings you the value, but instead of bringing you the value directly, it gives you a promise for the value. So you do .next and you get a promise for the number 1. Let's say I have a server and I have like my Facebook feed on the server, and I call .next, I get the first 20 messages in my Facebook feed. Then I call .next, I get the next 20 messages in my Facebook feed, and so on. Basically, async iterators model iterations that are asynchronous, which is not surprising given their name. Something that people really like to show with reactive extensions, which we'll show with async iterators, is this, autocomplete. So basically, if you're writing an autocomplete, something that like completes text for you, you have to do a lot of really complicated stuff in the code. You have to take all the events, and then you have to only take like non-empty ones and send the request to the server, and then you don't want to send too many requests to the server, and then you want to like not send duplicate requests for the server, and a bunch of stuff, and you want to, for each like value, send a request to the server for the value, and you don't want like values to get unordered, because let's say you were building autocomplete and you needed to like, someone typed A and then deleted it and typed B, and you send 2 requests to the server can like return it in the wrong order. So a lot of like really badly written autocompletes, like Windows 10 does this. You will start typing something, and it will like, and delete, then type something else, and it will bring you the result for the original thing and like disregard the thing you typed later. And this is the real problem. Now, reactive extensions, Rx, observables, which are coming to the spec, lets you write something like really nice. Lets you write this code, which does take all the events I have on my input. For each event, take its value. Don't take false events. .filter means like don't take values that match something. Like take only values that match something. Passing it Boolean just means take everything that's truthy. And then I say, wait, like don't send anything within an interval of 500 milliseconds. Don't send duplicate request. And for each request, fetch it. Fetch returns a promise. We can return promises to observables. And then we just say, get us the value with autocomplete. And what flatmap latest actually does, it's like discards old values for you. So basically, this is like, the autocomplete, in my opinion, is a pretty hard problem. And this is like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 9-line solution to a very hard problem. So this is pretty cool. Now, the question I want to ask today is, can async iterators do this? And do they even have to? Rx does this, and we talked about like that this is a hard problem. And indeed, this is like hard code with Rx. Every single operator there is long. Like .map is 40 lines long in Rx. And I want to like implement my own async iterator library, like live. No, I'm not going to do live coding because I'm chicken, but I'm going to show you the code. It's going to do the same thing. So basically, the first thing we have is from event. Those of you who have seen promises before know there is something called new promise that converts something that is not a promise into a promise. What this does is that it like takes an event, like add event listener. It's how we add events to the DOM, and it adds the event to the element. And whenever the event is resolved, that like whenever the event happens, when the key up or the click or something like that is performed, we resolve the promise. So basically, if we want like have a button and we add a click listener to it, this will listen to a single click. Like as soon as the click happens, it will not listen to any other clicks because A, it's a promise, it only resolves once, and B, we have remove event listener here that removes the promise. Okay, cool. So this just takes one event, but we want to listen to many events. We want to listen to all the keys. Now here's the fun part. Not only do we have async before the function, which is what we had before in async await, we also have a star here. For those of you who don't know, that means a generator. That's a function that yields values. Like it produces an iterator that we discussed before. It's okay if you don't remember all the terminology, but what it basically does, it lets us like return values continuously. What this does, it basically does while true, like whenever things are okay, and the computer hasn't crashed, yield await once L event. Now, what does the await do? Like, what does once do? Once waits for a single event on an element. Await means wait for it. Do not yield anything before we do the await. Basically, what yield gets here is the actual event object from the DOM. What yield does is it means like return it to the iteration. Yield on an iterator basically means take this value and add it to the iteration. So basically return it whenever a promise, like whenever an event happens, wait for it and yield the result to the iterator. This basically creates an iteration for all the most clicks on a button, for example. Every time we wait for the promise to resolve for the element, and then we add it to the iteration. So basically we can like get an iterator and iterate it for all the clicks on a button. This is a pretty slow optimization because I wrote it with the promise constructor, which has its like share of issues, and I like do add event listener and remove event listener in every iteration. But it's pretty simple. Like all we need to do is this code, which is probably the most complicated code you will see today, and this code, which does while true and introduces a bunch of keywords. But basically, I'm just saying like wait for the promise. That's the one. Like give me a promise for the event. That's once. Wait for it to happen. Yield, like put it in the iteration. And this gives me an iterator. The next thing we need to do is like take the event object and get the value. Like if we typed in a checkbox, we don't want to see like DOM event. We want to see like what we typed. Let's implement map, filter, and flat map. Basically what map does, for those of you who don't know, like as a function, it takes something called the functor, but let's like ignore what it takes like something that can like go through and applies a function to everything in it and returns a new something that's of the same type. Instead of like giving the complex definition, let's take an array, for example. If I have an array 1, 2, 3, and I pass it a function that takes a number and multiplies it by 5, I will get 5, 10, 15. Basically, what this does is like I do for await, which is also new syntax. It's really cool. And I do like for every value of the iterator, like give me the function applied to the value. And then I have an iteration of all like the values with the function applied. And this lets me do .map e goes to e.target.value, and I have like all, and like doing from event.map e goes to e.target.value gives me all the things typed into the checkbox. The next thing I do is filter. Filter just takes things I care about. So filter just does go through the iteration. It's the same for await const value of this. Like if the function is true, then yield the value. It's very simple to map. What map did, map applied the function to the value, and like a filter just discarded values I don't care about. This is a lot of new syntax, so I understand it might be confusing. You don't have to follow like the bits. You just have to like stick around to see the cool stuff and just understand the gist of things. So we have mapping, we have filtering. There's flat map. Flat map basically it's like a map that also unwraps. Let's ignore it for now, for those of you who haven't seen it before. The next thing we want to do is throttle. So basically, throttling means if I type really fast, I don't want to send the many request to the server. If I type my name, which is Benjamin Gruenbaum, which is long, I want to send a single request to the server when I finish typing. I don't want to send a request for every letter. That will be very annoying to the user and the server. This is basically throttling in Rx. For those of you who want to read it, you can. You don't have to. It's like return new anonymous observable of a function that does subscribe in a function that does a scheduler, and let's ignore it. This is like async generators doing the same thing. Basically, we just go through the values. We have a Boolean variable that does transmit equals true. If I want to transmit the next value, I yield it. Yield again adds the item to the iteration. I set it to false, and in the background, notice I don't have an await before the delay here. In the background, I just wait for the amount and then set it to true again. So if the iteration will happen many times here, within the amount of milliseconds, 500 milliseconds, it will not enter the if. After 500 milliseconds, it will enter the if, and I will get throttling, which means I will only send one request to the server. I get it. This is pretty complex for those of you who have not seen async functions and generators and async iterators before. But just notice that I don't have any complex code here. The only trick is that I'm doing something in the background with delay. And this is compared to what I had to do with Rx, which is this. Cool. In all the functions, let's take a simpler one. In all the functions I do for await const value of this. What this refers to here is the async iterator object itself. The way the code is written is that it chains all the functions together, and the way I'm able to accomplish that is that by appending them to every async iterator ever. So basically what .map does here is that it goes through this, which is the async generator, and it returns a new async generator, so I can chain to that. I'm adding to the async iterator prototype, which means it will be added to every async iterator globally. This is a bad idea. The example code I will provide with the slides is different, but it was to replicate the exact syntax Rx has to prove we can do it better. Yeah, for example here, for const value of this means I will go through every value in this async iterator. Okay, so distinct until change means don't take duplicate values. It's also not very complicated. I just set initial. It's the initial variable to a symbol. Symbol just means something unique. In this case, I do again for await const value of this. I iterate myself, and if the value is different, yield the different value and set it to the set the value I'm checking against to that value. So let's say I have an iteration here. That's asynchronous, but we can ignore that because we have for await, so we have abstracted the asynchronous part away from it, and it's giving us the number 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. So I will iterate the values. It will iterate 1. It will not be the initial value, and it will yield it to the next iteration. Then I will yield one, I will get in the for await 1 again. It will be equal to the initial because I set it to it, and it will not yield it. So basically, that's the whole code for distinct until changed, and I get that this might be confusing, the whole slide, but note that this is not a lot of code, and we did not do anything way out of, if we didn't know JavaScript, we didn't have all these callbacks and stuff instilled in our heads, this would make a lot of sense. Cool. So the last thing we have, which is the complicated part, is called flat map latest. What flat map latest does is it takes all your asynchronous requests and only does the last one before it is you want values from it. So basically, we want to define a function that's called last. This is an adaptation of a library Dominic call, someone called Dominic wrote. And basically, what it does is that it sets a symbol, and it takes a function. It's a higher order function. It takes a function, and it returns a new function that only returns their value and not a special value that says ignored if it is the last call. So basically, we're returning a promise because we have no notion of last call if we're not returning promises. And then we say, call the function. Like the first thing we do when the function is called the function and like set last seen, the last symbol I wrote, to the element that is called. Note that we're using a closure here. We're setting last seen like above the function returned. And then we are doing like get the current value. And if after it resolved, that is in a then, it is still the last value we have seen, return it. Otherwise, return junk, which is like a special symbol.ignored we created. We can also like use other stuff like promise cancellation, which is also coming. But I don't want to like do too many things at once. Now that we have last, if you don't grok the code, don't worry. It takes some like minutes. And this is like flat map latest, which does take every value in this dot map. Like, OK, let's like dissect it. We have this last fn here. This takes the function we gave to flat map latest and only returns not junk if we are the last call. Then we do this dot map last fn. It's like a regular map. We're mapping every value in the iteration, in the async iteration, into the call. And if it is still the last call when it is consumed, we yield it. I could have actually constructed this with a filter, but I wanted to use for await once more because I like using for await. It's fun. Basically, we're just like checking every iteration if it is the last call, and if it is, we are yielding it. Now, I realized I went through this probably like way fast, which is good because I want a lot of the time for questions and stuff. And the whole code I just showed you is implemented in maybe like 1,000 lines of code in reactive extensions. Maybe like 100, but it's still like much more. This example actually runs. I will provide you with the code, and it does exactly as advertised. It will take an event, and it will implement like a fully functional autocomplete on top of it, minus like writing things to the DOM, and it will take care of all your like autocomplete needs. But note that there are a few differences. First of all, I don't want to diss Rx. I love Rx. There are many things that Rx does way better than async iterators. Now, note that there is a slight difference here. In Rx, once I subscribed to like an observable, which might mean something to some of you, I get all the events. Like, I don't have a choice. They're just coming my way. And in the async iterator, which is what we used here, the consumer is in charge. They can do .next, 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 give me the next value, give me the next value, give me the next value, which is pretty cool. Basically, what I have here is like cheating code, because it doesn't call last. But this is like the whole thing implemented without implementing a single combinator. I didn't have to write map myself. I didn't have to write filter myself. This is just like a fully functional autocomplete iteration, combining the code from all the things above. I do from event. Instead of doing map, I use the structuring into the value. I check if I don't have a value. This replaces the filter. I check if it's too soon. This replaces the throttle. If it is, I continue. I check if it's the last value I saw. If it is, I continue, which means this is like the distinct until changed. Then I set it to the value. After I have the value, I await fetch. I just wait for the result to return, and then I return it to the consumer. I don't have the last like flat map latest thing here because it was probably confusing to some people, but I can just add last here and explain it with last. Then I set too soon to true, which means I do the throttling thing with the continue here, and then I wait for 500 milliseconds and set it to false again. This is like a fully functional autocomplete. I didn't use any library or any combinators. This is coming your way. It's really not that hard. Once you start to grok it, it was very confusing to me initially. Maybe you'll like get it much faster. But once I got it, it started looking kind of beautiful. Basically, it lets us solve like hard problems, like autocomplete, very, very declaratively. I got to write like 9 lines of code for implementing like a fully functional autocomplete with throttling and filtering and mapping and distinct until change and all the really, really complex stuff. And the crazy part is, this is a stage 2 proposal. It's like further ahead than a bunch of stuff you've all probably heard talks about. This is like getting championed by Dominic. Okay, Dominic De Nicola is a TC39 member from Google who introduced promises to JavaScript, basically. He's like a smart guy and a friend. So basically, we wrote this like 9 lines of code, and we did autocomplete like declaratively And the code here is not obvious, but I think with like a few lines of code, maybe 10, 20, most of you can grok it, if not all of you. It's really nice. What prior work is there? So Python already does this because, I don't know, it's like ran across us and added a lot of stuff. They have async iterators and async disposables and a bunch of stuff. Start in Python 3.5, so if you're using Python, use this. It solves a lot of things very cleanly. Dart does this. The person who invented reactive extensions actually like went and worked with the Dart team and introduced all the cool stuff to Dart. And Hack on Facebook also has async iterables and a bunch of stuff going their way. So if you use these languages, start using async iterators too. It's really cool and nice. OK, so action items. I realized I only went through one example, and I went through it probably very fast. Learn async iterators better. There is not a lot of material right now, but there is the official repository. Babel now runs async iterators through a plugin, and there's a lot of Kevin's parser that also runs them. Stop saying things like promises are deprecated. This is not for you guys, but like people are starting saying like there is only one good asynchronous primitive. There is only one. When people start saying there is only one way to do things, start getting afraid. And get involved. This is a proposal. The committee is looking for feedback. Read this. It's like somewhat confusing, but not really confusing. And there are a lot of more people interested in getting your input, both as consumers and as developers. And it's probably like smarter people than some of us involved. In this proposal, they're looking for your help. As a more general note, as a Node contributor, we are also looking for contributors. So if any one of you wants to get into Node or start committing code into Node, talk to me. I'm always interested in meeting people who want to help, and I will like guide you through the steps. OK, so before we ask questions, like thanks first of all to my reviewers. There is Dominic and Kevin and Eric and Chris and a bunch of other people who all helped. They're all like really nice people. One thing I learned is that do not be afraid to email people if you want their help. Usually they'll be more excited to help you than they'll be annoyed. So thank you for all the people who reviewed my slide. OK, so questions. Yeah, OK, so the question was, is it basically a generator that returns a promise? So like in the concept of it, yes, it's a generator that returns values. Like it's like the result of it is an iterator that returns promises, but the generator itself can also return both promises and regular values. And you can also like await promises in the generator in an unrelated way. It lets us write declarative things with generators that are also asynchronous. OK, thank you.